March 15th, 1987. Sonar technician First Class Mike Rodriguez sits in the cramped sonar room of a nuclear submarine 200 feet below the Indian Ocean. His screen shows something impossible, a metallic object the size of an aircraft carrier moving at 400 knots underwater near Diego Garcia. What Rodriguez doesn't know is that for the next 3 decades, the Navy will classify his sonar readings as equipment malfunction. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the Pentagon has kept the Diego Garcia USO files buried deeper than the Mariana Trench. Welcome to Wartime Mysteries, where the classified secrets of military operations surface from the depths of government cover-ups. Diego Garcia, a coral atoll in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 1,000 miles from the nearest populated land. To most of the world, it doesn't exist. But to the U.S. military, Diego Garcia is one of the most strategically important bases on Earth. The island is shaped like a horseshoe, with a deep water lagoon perfect for harboring nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers. Since 1973, it served as America's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean, launching operations from Afghanistan to Iraq. The base is so classified that even its existence was denied for decades. Military families can't live there. No journalists are allowed. What happens on Diego Garcia stays on Diego Garcia. Or so the Navy thought. What they didn't expect was that the deep waters around the atoll would become a hotspot for encounters with technology that shouldn't exist. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell was officer of the deck aboard the USS Hampton, a Los Angeles-class attack submarine, conducting routine patrols in the Indian Ocean. It was March 15th, 1987. The Hampton was running silent at 200 feet depth, approximately 12 nautical miles southeast of Diego Garcia, monitoring Soviet naval activity. Sonar technician First Class Mike Rodriguez, a veteran submariner with 8 years' experience, was manning the sonar shack when his passive arrays detected something that violated every law of underwater physics. Contact bearing 270. Rodriguez called over the intercom. Range approximately 5,000 yards in closing. Mitchell moved to the sonar station. Classification. Rodriguez stared at his screens, his face pale in the green glow. Ma'am, I'm showing a metallic signature approximately 800 feet in length. Speed. He paused, checking his instruments again. Ma'am, this contact is making 400 knots submerged. Mitchell felt her blood run cold. The fastest nuclear submarine in the world could barely make 30 knots underwater. 400 knots was impossible. Rodriguez, check your equipment. Run a full diagnostic. Already did, ma'am. All systems functioning normally. Contact maintaining course and speed. New contact. Rodriguez's voice cracked. Multiple contacts. I'm showing 6, no, 8 separate signatures. All metallic. All moving in formation at impossible speeds. Mitchell grabbed the periscope controls, but they were too deep to surface. Whatever was out there, they would have to track it on sonar alone. Contact is now bearing 250, range 3,000 yards, and closing rapidly. At current speed, it'll be on top of us in less than 2 minutes. The submarine's hull groaned as Mitchell ordered an emergency dive to 400 feet, but as they descended, the sonar contacts matched their movement perfectly, maintaining formation around the American submarine like wolves surrounding prey. All stop, Mitchell ordered. Silent running. The Hampton's engines went quiet. For 20 minutes, the unknown contacts held position around the submarine. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone. Rodriguez watched the screens in amazement as all 8 signatures accelerated away at speeds exceeding 500 knots, disappearing into the deep waters of the Indian Ocean. Ma'am, Rodriguez said quietly. What the hell was that? Mitchell looked at the sonar logs, knowing her next decision would define her career. She could report the encounter truthfully and risk being labeled crazy, or she could bury it and pretend it never happened. Rodriguez, this incident is classified. You will not discuss it with anyone. That's an order. Yes, ma'am. But what do we put in the log? Mitchell stared at the sonar data that proved they had encountered something beyond human technology. Equipment malfunction. Sonar array experienced technical difficulties during routine patrol. What they didn't know was that their encounter was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, similar incidents occurred with increasing frequency around Diego Garcia. Each time, reports were classified, witnesses transferred, and incidents buried in naval intelligence vaults. Captain James Hartwell, commanding officer of Naval Security Group Activity Diego Garcia, began noticing a pattern. USO encounters were happening weekly, all involving massive metallic objects moving at impossible speeds, demonstrating technology far beyond anything in American or Soviet arsenals. June 23, 1987, the USS Key West reported sonar contact with a cylindrical object 1,200 feet long, moving at 380 knots at 2,000 feet depth. The object appeared on sonar for 43 minutes before accelerating to over 600 knots and disappearing. August 15, 1987, the destroyer USS Spruance reported multiple sonar contacts moving in perfect geometric formations beneath the ship. The contacts maintained speeds of 350 to 400 knots for over an hour before diving below sonar range. October 3, 1987, the USS Phoenix encountered what the sonar operator described as an underwater city, a massive signature over 2,000 feet long, stationary on the ocean floor at 3,500 feet depth. When the Phoenix attempted closer observation, the entire structure disappeared from sonar. By November 1987, Captain Hartwell had documented 23 separate USO encounters around Diego Garcia. Each incident involved technology that shouldn't exist, operated by completely unknown intelligence. That's when naval intelligence stepped in. Captain Hartwell, you have a secure communication from ComSAPAC. Hartwell picked up the red phone. Hartwell here. Captain, this is Admiral Morrison. I'm calling about the unusual sonar reports from your area of operations. Yes, sir. I've been documenting them for headquarters. That documentation stops now. Effective immediately. All USO-related reports are classified under Special Access Program protocols. You are not to discuss these incidents with anyone outside your immediate command staff. Sir, don't you think we should investigate these contacts? They're demonstrating capabilities that could represent a significant threat to naval operations. Admiral Morrison's voice was ice cold. Captain, your job is to follow orders, not speculate about unidentified contacts. These incidents did not happen. Is that understood? Yes, sir. Understood. A special investigative team will arrive at Diego Garcia within 72 hours. You will provide full cooperation and access to all sonar logs and witness statements. After that, this matter will be handled at levels above your clearance. The line went dead. 3 days later, a team of civilians arrived aboard an unmarked transport aircraft. They carried credentials from the Office of Naval Intelligence, but their equipment suggested connections to agencies that didn't officially exist. Dr. Elizabeth Manning had spent 15 years studying unusual sonar phenomena for a Department of Naval Intelligence that didn't appear on any organizational chart. Her official title was acoustic analyst, but her real job was investigating underwater contacts that defied conventional explanation. Diego Garcia was her 23rd such assignment. Manning's team included Dr. Richard Stone, a marine biologist with deep-sea expertise, and Chief Petty Officer Thomas Blake, a sonar technician with 20 years submarine warfare experience. Gentlemen, Manning addressed the assembled sonar technicians. Everything we discuss here is classified at the highest levels. Anyone who violates security protocols will face court-martial. She gestured to a screen displaying sonar data from the USS Hampton's March 15th encounter. This is what we're dealing with. Objects moving at speeds that should create massive cavitation signatures. Yet our hydrophones detect minimal acoustic disturbance. Chief Blake studied the data. Dr. Manning, these signatures don't match anything in our threat assessment database. Soviet submarines can't move like this. Nobody can. That's correct. Which raises the question, if these objects aren't human-made, what are they? Dr. Stone examined recordings from multiple encounters. The movement patterns suggest intelligence. These objects aren't randomly wandering. They're conducting organized operations. Manning nodded. Our analysis indicates three distinct categories of USO activity around Diego Garcia. First, reconnaissance operations, objects approaching our submarine patrols and maintaining observation distance. Second, formation flying, multiple objects moving in coordinated patterns suggesting military organization. Third, technological demonstrations. Demonstrations? Captain Hartwell asked. Objects performing maneuvers that serve no apparent tactical purpose except to display capabilities. Rapid acceleration from 0 to 500 plus knots. Instantaneous direction changes that would destroy any known hull design. Diving to depths that should crush any known materials. Manning clicked to the next slide, showing a map of encounter locations. The pattern is clear. These objects are concentrated around Diego Garcia, with secondary activity near other major naval installations. Pearl Harbor, Norfolk, Kings Bay, Bangor. They're specifically interested in our nuclear naval facilities. The implications were chilling. If these objects represented foreign technology, they were decades ahead of anything America or the Soviet Union possessed. If they represented something else entirely, the implications were even more disturbing. Dr. Manning, sonar technician Rodriguez, spoke from the back. I was on the Hampton during the first encounter. That object, it knew we were there. It responded to our movements like it was intelligent. Explain. When we dove, it matched our depth. When we changed course, it maintained formation. It wasn't just observing us. It was interacting with us. Manning exchanged glances with her team. Intelligence suggested intention. Intention suggested a purpose that remained completely unknown. As the briefing concluded, Manning couldn't shake the feeling that they were dealing with something far beyond their understanding. The sonar data was clear. Something was living in the deep waters of the Indian Ocean, something that possessed technology that challenged everything humanity thought it knew about physics and engineering. November 15th, 1987, 0347 hours local time. Petty Officer 3rd Class Jennifer Hayes, a Navy diver assigned to underwater maintenance operations at Diego Garcia, was conducting routine inspection of submarine pier support structures when she encountered something that would haunt her for life. Hayes was a skilled technical diver with over 200 underwater hours in military operations. At 0300 hours, she had descended to 80 feet depth to inspect pier foundation damage reported by Harbor Patrol. The water around Diego Garcia's lagoon was typically crystal clear, but that night visibility was reduced due to unusual phosphorescence, microscopic organisms that glowed with eerie blue-green light when disturbed. Hayes was working beneath Pier 7, checking weld integrity on steel support beams, when her underwater lights began malfunctioning. One by one, her primary and backup illumination systems failed, leaving her in the phosphorescent glow of disturbed water. That's when she saw them. "Base, this is Diver 1. Hayes spoke into her communication system. "I'm showing multiple light sources approximately 200 feet below my position. Request guidance." The response crackled through her underwater comm unit. "Diver 1, no other dive operations are scheduled in your area. Describe the light sources." Hayes peered down into deeper water, where the lagoon floor dropped away into ocean depths. What she saw defied everything in her diving experience. Massive structures, clearly artificial, rested on the ocean floor 300 feet below. The structures were illuminated by soft, white light that seemed to emanate from the materials themselves rather than external sources. As Hayes watched smaller objects, each the size of a school bus, move between the larger structures in organized patterns. "Base, I'm observing what appears to be artificial structures on the ocean floor. Large, metallic constructions with internal illumination. Multiple smaller objects moving between them. Diver 1, maintain your position. Do not approach the objects. Prepare for immediate ascent." But before Hayes could respond, one of the smaller objects began rising from the depths directly toward her position. Hayes watched in fascination and terror as the object approached. It was streamlined, metallic, with no visible propulsion system, but moving with smooth, purposeful control. As it drew closer, Hayes could see it was approximately 30 feet long and covered in symbols or markings that didn't match any human writing system. The object stopped 50 feet below Hayes' position and remained motionless for several minutes. Through her face mask, Hayes could see observation ports or windows along its hull, behind which movement was barely visible. Base, one of the objects has approached my position. It appears to be observing me. Diver 1, ascend immediately. Emergency ascent protocol. Hayes began her emergency ascent, but as she rose toward the surface, the unknown object followed, maintaining the same distance. It tracked her movement perfectly, adjusting position and depth to match her ascent rate. As Hayes reached 30 feet depth, preparing for a mandatory decompression stop, the object suddenly accelerated away at impossible speed, disappearing into the depths faster than her eyes could follow. Hayes surfaced at 0412 hours. The dive boat crew hauled her aboard immediately, and within minutes she was face-to-face with Captain Hartwell and Dr. Manning. Petty Officer Hayes, Dr. Manning spoke calmly. I need you to describe exactly what you observed. Hayes recounted her encounter in detail, from the massive structures on the ocean floor to the object that had followed her to the surface. As she spoke, Dr. Manning took careful notes, asking specific questions about size, movement patterns, and the symbols she had observed. Hayes, Captain Hartwell interrupted. This encounter is classified at the highest levels. You will not discuss it with anyone. Is that understood? Yes, sir. But Captain, what were those things? Hartwell and Dr. Manning exchanged glances. That's not your concern, Petty Officer. Your concern is following orders and keeping your mouth shut. Hayes nodded, but she could see in Dr. Manning's eyes that even the investigators didn't know what they were dealing with. Within 48 hours, Hayes was transferred off Diego Garcia to a surface assignment in Norfolk, Virginia. Her diving qualifications were revoked due to medical concerns, and her security clearance was upgraded with additional non-disclosure agreements. She never dove again. January 8, 1988, the USS Indianapolis, a Los Angeles-class attack submarine, was conducting deep reconnaissance operations southeast of Diego Garcia when they encountered something that challenged the very foundation of naval warfare doctrine. Commander David Pierce was officer of the deck when his sonar team detected a massive signature on the ocean floor at 4,200 feet depth. Captain to sonar. Pierce called over the intercom. Sonar, sir, we've got a large contact on the bottom. Appears to be artificial construction. Estimate 2,500 feet in length, 800 feet in width. Pierce moved to the sonar station. Classification. Sonar technician second class Martinez stared at his displays. Sir, I'm showing multiple internal chambers, complex structural geometry, and, sir, this structure is showing internal power sources. Explain. The hull is generating acoustic signatures consistent with internal machinery. Power plants, ventilation systems, something that suggests this structure is active. Pierce felt his pulse quicken. An active underwater installation at 4,200 feet depth exceeded the technological capabilities of any known nation. The deepest operational facilities in the world barely reached 1,000 feet. Sonar, any indication of human construction? Martinez studied his readings carefully. Negative, sir. The structural geometry doesn't match any construction techniques in our database. And sir, I'm detecting movement within the structure. Movement. Internal signatures suggesting objects moving through the structure's corridors or chambers. Size estimates range from 10 to 50 feet in length. Pierce made a decision that would define his naval career. Take us down. Approach the structure for visual observation. The Indianapolis descended slowly toward the ocean floor, its hull creaking under increasing water pressure. At 4,000 feet depth, they reached visual range of the structure. What they saw through the periscope camera defied rational explanation. The structure was clearly artificial, but followed no design principles from human engineering. Its hull appeared to be constructed from a single piece of metallic material, with no visible joints or seams. The surface was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change when observed directly. Most disturbing were the observation ports. Dozens of circular openings dotted the structure's hull, behind which internal lights revealed movement that suggested occupancy by unknown intelligence. Captain, Martinez called from sonar. Multiple objects are emerging from the structure. Through the periscope camera, Pierce watched a smaller craft, each approximately 100 feet in length, detached from the main structure and began moving toward the Indianapolis. Their movement was smooth, controlled, with no visible propulsion systems. "All stop," Pierce ordered. Silent running. The unknown craft approached to within 500 feet of the submarine and held position, surrounding the Indianapolis in a perfect geometric formation. For 20 minutes, neither side moved. Then, without warning, one of the craft transmitted a burst of acoustic energy directly at the submarine. The transmission was complex, modulated, clearly artificial, but unlike any known sonar or communication protocol. "Sir," Martinez reported, "the transmission contained structured information. It's not random noise. It's some kind of language or code." Pierce stared at the sonar displays, realizing they had just received what could only be described as a communication attempt from unknown intelligence. The question was whether it was a greeting, a warning, or something else entirely. "Captain," the navigation officer reported, "our systems are being affected. GPS is showing impossible coordinates. Compass readings are fluctuating." The unknown craft maintained their formation around the Indianapolis for another hour, transmitting periodic bursts of structured acoustic energy. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they returned to the massive structure on the ocean floor. Pierce ordered the Indianapolis to ascend immediately. Whatever they had encountered was beyond their understanding and potentially beyond their ability to handle safely. As they reached safer depths, Pierce faced the same decision that had confronted every naval officer who had encountered the USOs. Report the truth and risk his career, or classify the incident and pretend it never happened. Navigation, log our position as conducting routine deep reconnaissance operations. Sonar, equipment malfunction affected our readings below 4,000 feet depth. But Pierce made copies of the sonar recordings and camera footage, storing them in his personal files. If the Navy wanted to pretend these encounters weren't happening, he would at least preserve the evidence. Evidence that would remain classified for the next 35 years. By mid-1988, USO encounters around Diego Garcia had increased to an average of 3 per week. The incidents involved multiple submarines, surface ships, and reconnaissance aircraft, all reporting contacts that defied conventional explanation. Admiral James Morrison, Commander Submarine Forces Pacific, made a decision that would define naval policy toward USO encounters for the next 3 decades. Complete denial and systematic cover-up. "Gentlemen," Morrison addressed a classified briefing of senior naval officers at Pearl Harbor. "The Diego Garcia situation has reached a level where it threatens operational security of our Pacific submarine fleet." The assembled officers represented the highest levels of naval command: submarine squadron commanders, intelligence directors, and operational planners whose decisions affected thousands of sailors and billions of dollars in naval assets. "Sir," Captain Reynolds, commanding officer of Submarine Squadron 15, spoke carefully, "are we acknowledging that these USO encounters represent genuine unknown contacts?" Morrison's face was stone. "Captain, we are acknowledging that persistent reports of unusual sonar contacts are affecting crew morale and operational effectiveness. Our response will be to eliminate these reports through proper command discipline." "Sir, with respect, eliminating reports doesn't eliminate the contacts themselves." "Captain Reynolds, your job is to command submarines, not to speculate about unidentified contacts. From this point forward, any personnel reporting USO encounters will be subject to psychological evaluation and potential reassignment." Dr. Manning stepped forward. "Admiral, my analysis indicates that these encounters represent systematic surveillance of our nuclear naval operations. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away." Morrison turned his cold stare toward the intelligence analyst. "Dr. Manning, your investigation is complete. Your team will return to Washington and file a final report classifying all USO encounters as equipment malfunctions or misidentified biological contacts." "Sir, the evidence clearly indicates." "The evidence indicates nothing beyond the need for better sonar technician training and more rigorous equipment maintenance protocols." Manning realized that the decision had been made at levels far above her clearance. The Navy would officially deny the existence of USO encounters regardless of the evidence. "Admiral, what about the sonar recordings? The photographic evidence? The witness testimonies from experienced naval personnel? All classified under Special Access Program protocols. Dr. Manning, you signed non-disclosure agreements when you accepted this assignment. I suggest you review those agreements carefully." The message was clear. Cooperation meant continued employment and security clearance. Resistance meant career termination and potential prosecution under the Espionage Act. Manning nodded her understanding, but privately made the same decision as Commander Pierce. She would preserve the evidence, even if she couldn't officially acknowledge it. Over the following months, naval personnel who reported USO encounters found themselves transferred to remote assignments, subjected to psychological evaluations, or pressured to recant their testimonies. The official message was clear. Seeing USOs was career suicide, but the encounters continued. March 1992. For years after the official cover-up began, Senior Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes, a veteran sonar technician with 22 years of naval service, made a decision that would expose the Diego Garcia incidents to public scrutiny. Hayes had been present during 17 separate USO encounters while serving aboard submarines operating out of Diego Garcia. He had watched as the Navy systematically denied, classified, and buried evidence of contacts that clearly demonstrated technology beyond human capabilities. When Hayes retired from active duty, he retained copies of sonar recordings, incident reports, and photographic evidence from multiple USO encounters. His decision to preserve this evidence violated numerous security protocols, but Hayes believed the American people deserved to know the truth. Hayes contacted investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe, known for her research into government secrecy surrounding unusual phenomena. Their first meeting took place in a diner in San Diego, far from any military installations. "Ms. Howe," Hayes said quietly, handing her a thick envelope, "what I'm about to show you will challenge everything you think you know about what's in our oceans." The envelope contained copies of classified sonar recordings from the USS Hampton, USS Indianapolis, and 3 other submarines. The acoustic signatures clearly showed objects moving at speeds that violated known laws of underwater physics. These contacts were logged by experienced sonar technicians, Hayes explained. Men who could identify a Soviet nuclear submarine from 50 miles away. They all reported the same thing. Objects demonstrating technology decades beyond anything we possess. Howe studied the sonar printouts carefully. "Senior Chief, why are you risking prosecution under the Espionage Act to share this information?" Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "Because the American people are paying for a military that's encountering unknown intelligence in our oceans, and their government is lying to them about it." Over the following months, Hayes provided Howe with additional evidence. Photographs of USOs taken through submarine periscopes, acoustic recordings of structured transmissions detected during deep encounters, and testimony from other naval personnel who had witnessed unexplained phenomena. Howe's investigation revealed that USO encounters weren't limited to Diego Garcia. Similar incidents have been reported and classified at naval installations worldwide: Norfolk, Pearl Harbor, Kings Bay, Holy Lock, and submarine bases throughout the Pacific and Atlantic. In September 1992, Howe published her findings in a series of articles that exposed the Navy's systematic cover-up of USO encounters. The response from official sources was swift and predictable: complete denial. The Navy has no records of any unusual underwater contacts in the areas described, a Pentagon spokesperson stated. These alleged incidents are based on fabricated documents and false testimony from disgruntled former personnel. But Hayes had anticipated the official response. He had retained additional evidence, including audio recordings of classified briefings, where senior officers acknowledged the reality of USO encounters while planning their cover-up. The release of this additional evidence forced the Navy to modify its position from complete denial to qualified acknowledgement. While the Navy acknowledges that personnel have reported unusual sonar contacts in various operational areas, these contacts have been determined to result from equipment malfunctions, atmospheric conditions, or misidentification of known marine life. The official explanation satisfied no one who examined the evidence Hayes had provided, but it allowed the Navy to maintain plausible deniability while avoiding direct contradiction of documented facts. Hayes paid a heavy price for his whistleblowing. His security clearance was revoked, his military pension was subjected to extended review, and he faced investigation for violations of the Espionage Act. The charges were eventually dropped due to publicity surrounding the case, but Hayes' life was forever changed. "I knew what it would cost me," Hayes told Howe in a final interview. But some truths are more important than personal consequences. The end of the Cold War brought new transparency to military records, but USO encounters remained among the most classified secrets in naval intelligence. It wasn't until 2017 that the first official acknowledgement came from an unexpected source. Commander David Fravor, a former Navy fighter pilot, publicly revealed his encounter with unidentified objects during training exercises off the coast of California. His testimony opened the door for other military personnel to come forward with their own experiences. In 2019, the Navy officially acknowledged that videos showing unidentified aerial phenomena were authentic recordings made by military personnel. The admission represented a fundamental shift from decades of denial and cover-up. Dr. Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, became a vocal advocate for government transparency regarding unexplained phenomena. In several public statements, Mellon acknowledged that military personnel had encountered objects demonstrating technology beyond human capabilities. The evidence is clear that our military has encountered phenomena that challenge our understanding of physics and engineering, Mellon stated in a 2020 interview. The question isn't whether these encounters are real. The evidence proves they are. The question is what they represent and why our government has concealed them from the American people. In 2020, the Pentagon released 3 videos showing military encounters with unidentified objects moving in ways that defied conventional understanding of aerodynamics. While the videos showed aerial phenomena, the implications for underwater encounters were significant. Dr. Manning, now retired from government service, felt free to speak about her experiences investigating USO encounters. In a 2021 interview, she revealed the scope of the phenomena that had been concealed from public view. The Diego Garcia incidents were part of a much larger pattern, Manning explained. "We documented hundreds of encounters with objects demonstrating technology that was decades beyond our capabilities. These weren't isolated incidents. They represented systematic observation of our naval operations by an unknown intelligence." Manning's revelations prompted additional former naval personnel to come forward with their own testimonies. The accumulated evidence painted a picture of widespread USO activity that had been concealed through classification and intimidation. Senior Chief Hayes, now in his 70s, felt vindicated by the changing official attitude toward unexplained phenomena. "I spent 30 years wondering if I'd done the right thing by going public," he reflected. "Now I know that transparency is always preferable to cover up, especially when it involves phenomena that could affect national security." Today, Diego Garcia remains one of America's most secret military installations. The official position regarding USO encounters hasn't changed. All reports are classified, all witnesses are bound by non-disclosure agreements, and the public receives no information about ongoing phenomena. But according to sources who cannot be identified, USO encounters continue in the waters around Diego Garcia and other naval installations worldwide. Modern sonar technology has provided even clearer evidence of objects demonstrating impossible capabilities. But this evidence remains classified at the highest levels. Recent developments suggest that other nations are experiencing similar encounters. Russian and Chinese naval personnel have reported contacts with unidentified underwater objects that demonstrate technology beyond human capabilities. The global nature of these encounters suggests that whatever intelligence controls the USOs is monitoring all human naval operations, not just American facilities. In 2023, a former Royal Navy sonar operator revealed that British submarines had encountered similar phenomena in the waters around their nuclear submarine bases. The operator, speaking anonymously, described objects moving at speeds that made our fastest submarines look like they were standing still. The accumulation of evidence from multiple navies worldwide suggests that USO encounters represent a global phenomenon that transcends national boundaries and military rivalries. Whatever intelligence controls these objects appears to be conducting systematic surveillance of human naval capabilities on a planetary scale. The question that haunts current naval planners is whether this surveillance represents preparation for contact, conquest, or simply scientific observation. The objects have demonstrated technological superiority that could easily overwhelm human naval forces, yet they have shown no hostile intent. Dr. Stone, the marine biologist who participated in the original Diego Garcia investigation, has spent decades analyzing the accumulated evidence. His conclusion is both reassuring and disturbing. These objects represent intelligence that could destroy our naval forces without effort, but chooses not to. The question is whether their restraint reflects benevolent intentions or simply lack of interest in human affairs. Analysis of accumulated USO encounter data reveals technology that challenges fundamental assumptions about underwater physics and engineering. The objects demonstrate capabilities that shouldn't be possible given human understanding of materials science, propulsion systems, and structural engineering. Speed. USOs have been tracked moving at speeds exceeding 600 knots underwater. The fastest human submarines achieve approximately 45 knots submerged. At 600 knots, water resistance should tear apart any known hull design. Depth. USOs have been observed operating at depths exceeding 6,000 feet, without any apparent structural stress. Human submarines are crush depth limited to approximately 3,000 feet for the strongest military designs. Maneuverability. USOs demonstrate instantaneous acceleration and direction changes that would generate G-forces fatal to any biological occupants and destructive to any known mechanical systems. Acoustic stealth. Despite their size and speed, USOs produce minimal acoustic signatures. Human submarines generate massive sound profiles that can be detected from hundreds of miles away. Commander Pierce, now retired and free to discuss his encounters, believes the technology gap represents the most significant challenge to human naval supremacy since the invention of nuclear propulsion. We're dealing with technology that makes our most advanced submarines look like wooden sailing ships, Pierce explained in a 2022 interview. The question isn't whether we can compete with this technology. We can't. The question is whether whoever controls it sees us as a threat, a curiosity, or simply irrelevant. The implications for naval strategy are profound. If USOs represent hostile intelligence, human naval forces would be helpless against their superior capabilities. Current military planning assumes technological parity or superiority over potential adversaries. USOs represent a paradigm shift toward technological inferiority that military strategists are unprepared to address. More troubling is the possibility that USO technology could be acquired by hostile human nations. If Russia, China, or other adversaries gained access to USO propulsion and materials technology, the global balance of power would shift overnight. Dr. Manning's analysis suggests that the USO's interest in nuclear naval facilities indicates sophisticated understanding of human military capabilities. They're not randomly exploring our oceans, she noted. They're systematically cataloging our most advanced military assets that suggests intelligence gathering for specific purposes. The accumulated evidence from 4 decades of USO encounters raises fundamental questions about humanity's place in planetary and cosmic hierarchies. The technology demonstrated by these objects suggests intelligence that achieve capabilities far beyond current human understanding. Whether this intelligence represents earthly neighbors, extraterrestrial visitors, or something else entirely, their systematic observation of human naval operations indicates interest in human technological development and military capabilities. The benign nature of USO encounters provides hope that this intelligence doesn't view humans as threats requiring elimination, but the systematic surveillance suggests evaluation for purposes that remain unknown and potentially concerning. Military strategists face unprecedented challenges in developing responses to intelligence that demonstrates overwhelming technological superiority. Traditional concepts of deterrence, defense, and retaliation become meaningless when facing technology that can neutralize human naval forces without difficulty. Dr. Manning's final assessment of the USO phenomenon emphasizes the need for transparency and international cooperation. We're dealing with intelligence that transcends human national boundaries and military rivalries. Our response should reflect the global nature of the encounters and the common interest of all humanity in understanding what shares our planet. The question facing current and future generations is whether humanity is prepared for contact with intelligence that has been observing our development from the depths of Earth's oceans. The evidence suggests that this contact may not be optional. The intelligence appears to be preparing for some form of interaction, and humanity's readiness may determine whether that interaction proves beneficial or catastrophic. Senior Chief Hayes, now approaching 80 years of age, reflects on 4 decades of USO encounters with a mixture of wonder and concern. I've spent my life wondering what those objects represented and what their occupants wanted from us. I may not live to see the answers, but I hope future generations are prepared for contact with intelligence that makes our technology look primitive. The deep waters around Diego Garcia continue to harbor secrets that challenge everything humanity thought it knew about Earth's oceans and our place in the universe. The encounters documented in these classified files represent just the beginning of a story that may define humanity's future among intelligences that have been waiting in the depths for us to develop enough to notice their presence. The Diego Garcia incident files remain classified, but the truth they contain cannot be suppressed forever. Somewhere in the Indian Ocean, in waters deeper than any human has explored, intelligence watches and waits. Whether they represent opportunity or threat may depend on humanity's wisdom in preparing for contact with minds that see our most advanced technology as primitive curiosities. The question isn't whether we will encounter this intelligence again. The evidence suggests we encounter it every day. The question is whether we will be ready when they decide it's time to make themselves known. Welcome to the deep mystery that lies beneath our understanding of Earth's oceans. Welcome to the reality that we are not alone in our planet's depths, and we may never have been alone at all. Thank you for joining Wartime Mysteries for this investigation into the classified encounters that challenge everything we thought we knew about Earth's oceans. These declassified files remind us that some of the most profound mysteries of our time remain buried in the deepest vaults of military secrecy. The evidence presented here comes from decades of classified documents, witness testimonies, and government sources who risked their careers to reveal the truth. Whether these encounters represent earthly intelligence, extraterrestrial visitors, or something beyond our current understanding, they deserve investigation rather than denial. If you found this investigation compelling, please subscribe to our channel and share it with others who seek the hidden truths of military history. Your support ensures that classified stories like these continue to surface from the depths of government secrecy. Until next time, remember that some of the most important discoveries in human history remain classified, waiting in files that may never be declassified. But the truth has a way of surfacing, like objects rising from the deepest ocean depths. The waters around Diego Garcia keep their secrets well, but as we've seen today, even the deepest secrets eventually surface. Stay curious, stay questioning, and remember that the most profound mysteries may be hiding in the places we're not supposed to look.